And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about a second round potential pick here in Ryan Kalkbrenner. We're going to be talking about if the Chicago Bulls should be looking at him in the second round. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Wazella's slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And so we're looking at a potential second round pick here and maybe a sleeper in Ryan Kalkbrenner out of Creighton. So he played in the Big East. And so if you're not familiar with him, he is a 7'1" center with a 7'5" wingspan. He's weighing in at 270. He's 23 years old, so he's a little bit older as far as a prospect is concerned. But when you look at the numbers, you're looking at a player that absolutely improved from day one. And so you could see where he was his freshman year here at Creighton and where he finished. And so you see that he finished with 19.2 points per game, 2.7 blocks a game, 8.7 rebounds a game. He shot 68.1% from the free throw line. He had shot 79.5% before, as you can see that. He shot 34.4% from downtown. So you see that he has the three-point range. And then his field goal percentage came through at 65.3 from the field, and he had 1.5 turnovers here. So let's look at just the upside for him. And so offensively, when you look at his game, I mean, there's so much to like about him. I've watched him for 2 seasons, and so not just this last season. So I love what Coach McDermott was able to do with him. And so offensively, I like the fact that he finishes well in traffic. I think that you see a player that in a lot of his dunks and things like that, he definitely takes some body contact and he's able to finish. And so that's point number one. I think he's very good as far as going through contact. Number two, he's an absolute lob threat. I think that if your guard is going downhill, he is a guy that has some terrific hands. He will go up and catch the basketball, and he's looking to dunk the ball. There's lots of players that are looking for the finesse layups and things like that. No, it is not going to be the case here with Kalkbrenner. He is going to make sure that he puts somebody on a poster. And so I love that about him, that he brings that nastiness and just really that old school type of feel to the center position. And so he's going to look to dunk on you that way. Next up, he's terrific as far as a screener. I thought that he was terrific in his pick and rolls or pick and pop situations. He really knows how to use his frame, his weight, and everything else to just impact the defender and give you some space as a guard or to create some space off the pop. And so he's not the quickest player coming off the roll, but again, he has, just that height, and he has the weight to where essentially if he can get a player to trail, it's all over. They would have to go through him and foul him to get to him. And again, he's terrific at catching the ball and finishing. So you love that. I think that he has terrific screening ability, which is immediately going to translate. Next up, he has a terrific feel for the game. I love that when you watch him operate on the box, it seems like that he's going at his own pace, and he has a terrific feel. I think he has a nice little hook shot to his game, and so he has that type of feel. And then he's just a player that he just knows how to just take the contact, and he just knows, okay, hey, I'm spinning this way, I'm going this way. It's a guy that he just seems to have a pretty good feel for that. And as far as passing wise, look, it's not anything that is going to be just as far as a highlight reel or anything like that, but it's a basic type of passing game that is going to get it done. He will hit you on the bounce pass. He knows how to hit you on the pocket passes and things like that. He's terrific at being a connector out of the pick and roll. So I did like that. So you're getting a player that is very capable of going ahead and getting you some assists as a center. So I like that about him. And then next, the next thing that I love about him is just that his floor spacing ability. So going back, to his coach, obviously we had Doug McDermott, who was drafted to the Chicago Bulls, who was a shooter. And so, Creighton, with the type of spacing that they had in their offense, he fit perfectly. He knew exactly when to go ahead and pop out for a 3-point shot, or at least take his big out of the paint. He knows, where to go after the pick and roll if he's not going to get the ball. So he understands what's going on from a floor spacing standpoint, floor balance, which is what you want. Because if the Chicago Bulls were to get him with Coby White, Josh Giddey, Kevin Huerter, I'm assuming that these guys are still there. You got to understand, okay, look, I cannot draw defenders to these guys. I got to know, okay, this is the time for me to command the basketball, to look forward. This is my time to get out, go back screen or something like that. And so he's perfectly fine with that. And he's mobile enough to play in that type of offense. And so he's not going to slow you down. If you want to get up 3-point shots, he can knock that down. And he's going to give the spacing necessary to a guy like Josh Giddey, Coby White, whoever, Lonzo Ball. If they're going downhill, he's not going to get in the way. So I love that as far as his awareness on the offensive end. And so next, when you look at his defense and his upside, look, one of the things about him is he was one of the better shot blockers in all of college basketball without fouling. Remember when we were talking about Thomas Sorber, that is one of the things why I loved his game, because he's a guy that can get steals and also get block shots, and they're not fouling. That's huge, okay? Because when you make it to the NBA, players are a lot faster and things like that. And so if you're undisciplined at the college level, it's certainly going to show at the NBA level. And so not saying that there's not going to be an adjustment, but I like the fact that that principle is already in place, which is why I like him a lot, because you're looking at a player that, in my opinion, he's ready to contribute right now. He may not have the biggest type of ceiling, but he's definitely ready to contribute right now for you. And so love his defensive upside and what he brings there. He has a real good feel for that, understanding when to go for the block shot and things like that. He's a guy that is not going to get out of position. And I think that he competes as hard as he does on the offensive end. That should be noted, because there's some players, they play offense, they don't necessarily play defense. Not him. I think you're seeing a player that locks into the details of the game defensively, doesn't have the best athleticism, which we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I love the fact that he is competing out there, and you can definitely tell he's using his basketball IQ on the defensive end. And so next with him, I love the fact that he just doesn't take possessions off. I think that if you look at his highlights, there is not any possessions that I saw him take off on the offensive end or the defensive end. And so that is one of the things that the Chicago Bulls need to continue to build upon, as far as just building up the identity of the team. You need to get some players out there that are some real dogs. And he is definitely the type of dog that you want to get into the building, because he's going to compete his tail off. I could see that Modest Buzelis would be a player that could definitely play alongside of him, just with the type of mentality that he has. And so I think he's going to compete his tail off at the next level. I love that about him. Next, as far as the things that Kalkbrenner is going to have to get better at, I think number one for him is he needs to get better as a rebounder, because at 8.7 rebounds a game, not bad. But at 7-1, I think you would want to see that in double figures. And so that's just going to be more so, I think, a little bit more effort, a little bit more attention to detail, maybe getting stronger there to where you can get in position on the box out, and things like that. So he's got to get better there. Next for him, I think another thing that he would have to get better at is just he's going to have to figure out how to be even more impactful on the defensive end. And so I think he's going to be a plus defender at the next level. The issue is he's just not that quick. And so the lateral quickness is not there. I think he's going to be absolutely fine in drop coverage. I think he's going to be fine if you have to have him go out and guard, say, a mobile center like a Brook Lopez that wants to shoot threes and stuff like that. I think he'll be fine there. And I think he could get out there and he could guard like a Miles Turner or something like that. Like, I don't think he's going to necessarily get blown by that way. But if he gets caught in a pick and roll with like a Jalen Brunson or a De'Aaron Fox or something like that, or just really, any of these NBA guards that have the ball in their hands and are very good with the pick and roll situation, that is where trouble could really be there for him. And so you would need to have some other defensive pieces around him. But going back to what I was talking about with his basketball IQ, he's the type of player that he's going to compete, and he's certainly going to understand where his reads are. So that means that if you're on the back line and you're telling him, hey, your help is to the middle of the floor. He is going to push that guard to the middle of the floor. If you're like, hey, push him to the baseline, he will make that adjustment. But you're also going to need to have the perimeter players around him to go out there, make the adjustments, be there for the rotations and things like that, because individually right now with his quickness, he's not going to be a guy that is going to shut down a perimeter-based player. And so, with that being said, look, I think that he could be a steal in the second round. Remember, the Chicago Bulls are at pick number 45. Doesn't mean that they couldn't trade back into the second round. And I think that you would be getting an NBA ready type of center to contribute from the backup position. Like, I would not have an issue with Ryan Kalkbrenner coming off the bench for the Chicago Bulls. I think he would absolutely be perfect for us as far as what we want to do offensively. And I think defensively, look, and I'm not comparing him to Vooch, but just saying, if Vooch is playing drop coverage and then you had him, I think that you're going to get even more attention to detail effort on the defensive end here. He just needs to get better as a rebounder, but I think he's a contributor from day one. And so when I look at the player comparisons, to me, the first player that comes to mind would be a Brook Lopez. I think that he could be like a Brook Lopez. He reminds me of that, especially with the way that he shoots the ball and everything like that. Like, Brook Lopez doesn't have the quickest release, but he uses his height and his ability to knock down those three-point shots. And remember, Brook Lopez, when he came into the league, he didn't have this three-point shot. This is something that he definitely kind of grew into, and I think that you are getting that with Kalkbrenner immediately into the league. He would be able to do the things that Brook Lopez can do here from outside, and he also, too, provides a little bit of nastiness in the post. He would have to get a little bit better, but I do like the things that would translate immediately. Next for me, with the way that he's kind of got the feel for the offense and things like that, and he has a little bit of footwork there. I mean, it's not, fantastic, but he definitely has something there as far as his offensive bag. He reminds me of a former player that used to play for us and also played for the Lakers, but Gasol. He reminds me a lot of Pau Gasol. I think that I see shades of that with the way that he could maybe turn over his shoulder and get the little bank shot off the glass and that little hook shot and things like that. And he's just smooth with it. And so I could see a little bit of that as well. And so those are two player comparisons I'd love to, see him grow into. And once again, when we're talking about player comparisons, these are shades of players that are maybe into it, kind of remind you of his game or kind of into his game or whatnot. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that the Chicago Bulls should maybe perhaps consider getting back into the second round or taking him at pick 45 if he's available? Once again, it's Ryan Kalkbrenner here out of Creighton. He had a very good season here last season, and he had some great seasons with Creighton and really just got better each season. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.